The Velveteen Rabbit, written by Marjorie Williams, illustrated by David Jorgensen. There was once a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning he was really splendid. He was fat and bunchy as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown and white, and he had real thread whiskers. His ears, they were lined with pink sateen. There were other things the boy had received as well, but the rabbit was quite best of all. Well, for at least 2 hours the boy loved him. Eventually, though, in all the excitement of looking at other presents, the Velveteen Rabbit was forgotten. For a long time he lived in the toy cupboard or on the nursery floor, and nobody thought much about him. He was naturally shy, and some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him. The mechanical toys were very superior and looked down upon everyone else. The poor little rabbit was made to feel very insignificant and commonplace, and the only other toy that talked to him at all was the skin horse. The skin horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He was so old that his brown coat was bald in patches and showed the seams underneath. But no matter how old he was very wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive, and he knew they were only toys. He also knew they would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced like the skin horse understand anything about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day. "Does it mean you have things that buzz inside you?" "Real isn't how you're made," the skin horse said. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." The rabbit sighed. He thought it would be a long time before this magic called real happened to him. He wished it could come sooner. In the nursery, there was a person called Nana who ruled everything. She went swooping about like a great wind and hustled them all away into cupboards. She called this tidying up, and the playthings hated it. The rabbit didn't mind so much, for wherever he was thrown, he came down soft. One evening, the boy couldn't find the dog that always slept with him. Nana was in a great hurry, so she looked around the room and said, "Here, take your old bunny. He'll do to sleep with you." That night, and for many nights after, the Velveteen Rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him very tight, and sometimes he even rolled over him. But very soon he grew to like it. The boy would talk to him and made nice tunnels for him under the sheets to live in. So time went on, and the little rabbit was very happy. So happy that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier and shabbier. Spring came, and they had long days in the garden. Wherever the boy went, Rabbit went too. Once, when the boy was called to go in, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dusk, and Nana had to come and look for him with the candle because the boy couldn't sleep unless he was there. "Fancy all that fuss for a toy." "Give me my bunny," said the boy. "You mustn't say that. He isn't a toy. He's real." The bunny knew he was real. The boy had said so himself. He was no longer a toy. And that was a wonderful summer. The boy always made the rabbit a little nest somewhere among the bracken, where he was quite cozy. One evening, while the rabbit was lying there quite alone, he saw 2 strange beings creep out of a tall bracken near him. They were rabbits like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been made very well, because their seams didn't show at all. The rabbit stared hard to see which side the clockwork stuck out, but he couldn't see that either. They were evidently a whole new kind of rabbit altogether. "Why don't you play with us?" one of them asked. "I don't feel like it," said the rabbit. He didn't want to explain that he had no mechanics in him. "Can you hop on your hind legs?" asked the furry rabbit. "I don't want to," said the Velveteen Rabbit. The wild rabbits looked very sharply at him. "He hasn't got any hind legs," he called out. "Fancy a rabbit without any hind legs." The wild rabbit came even closer. "He doesn't smell right. Why, he isn't even a rabbit at all. He isn't real." "I am real," said the little rabbit. "I am. The boy said so." And he nearly began to cry. Just then there was the sound of footsteps, and the boy ran near them, and the two wild rabbits disappeared. For a long time, the Velveteen Rabbit lay very still. Eventually, the boy came and carried him home. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby. But the boy loved him just as much. He didn't mind how he looked to other people, because the nursery magic had made him real. And when you are real, shabbiness doesn't matter. Then one day, the boy fell ill. It was a long, weary time, for the boy was too sick to play, and the little rabbit found it rather dull with nothing to do all day. But he snuggled down patiently and whispered in the boy's ears about all the things they were going to do when the boy felt better. Eventually, the fever turned and the boy got better. The little rabbit cuddled close at his side, and one day they let the boy get up and get dressed. The boy was going to the seaside. The room had to be disinfected, and all the books and toys that the boy had played with must be thrown away. "Hurrah!" thought the little rabbit. "Tomorrow we shall go to the seaside." But just then Nana caught sight of him. "How about that old bunny?" she asked. "That?" said the doctor. "Why, it's a mass of scarlet fever germs. You must get rid of it and get him a new one." So the little rabbit was put in a sack with old picture books and a lot of rubbish and carried out to the end of the garden behind the fowl house. That night the boy slept in a different bedroom, and he had a new bunny to sleep with him. It was a splendid bunny, all white and plush with real glass eyes, but the boy was too excited to care very much about it, for tomorrow he was going to the seaside, and that in itself was such a wonderful thing that he could think of nothing else. Meanwhile, the little rabbit lay among the old picture books in the corner behind the fowl house and felt very lonely. He thought of those sunlit hours in the garden, how happy they were. He thought of the skin horse, so wise and gentle, of what it is to be loved and lose one's beauty and become real. What use is it if it all ends like this? Then a tear, a real tear, trickled down the shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. Then a strange thing happened. Where the tear had fallen, a flower grew out of the ground, a mysterious flower. It was so beautiful that the little rabbit forgot to cry and just lay there watching it. The blossom opened, and out of it stepped a fairy. "Little rabbit, don't you know who I am?" The rabbit looked at her. "I'm the nursery magic fairy. I take care of all the playthings that children have loved. When they are old and worn out and the children don't need them anymore, I come and take them away and make them real." "Wasn't I real before?" "You were real to the boy," the fairy said, "because he loved you. But now you shall be real to everyone." She held the little rabbit close in her arms and flew with him to the wood. In the open glade between the tree trunks, the wild rabbits danced with their shadows on the velvet grass. "I've brought you a new playfellow," said the fairy. "You must be very kind to him and teach him all he needs to know in Rabbitland, for he is going to live with you forever and ever." The little rabbit sat quite still for a moment and never moved. He did not know that when the fairy kissed him the last time, she had changed him altogether. And he might not have ever noticed if just then something hadn't tickled his nose, and before he thought what he was doing, he lifted his hind toe to scratch it. He found that he actually had hind legs. Instead of dingy velveteen, he had brown fur, soft and shiny. His ears twitched by themselves. He grew so excited that when at last he did stop to look for the fairy, she had gone. He was a real rabbit at last, and home with the other rabbits. When the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the wood again. And just as he was playing, two rabbits crept out from the bracken and peeped at him. One of them was brown all over, but the other had strange markings under his fur, as though long ago he had been spotted, and the spots still showed through. "Why, he looks just like my old bunny that was lost when I had scarlet fever." But he never knew that it really was his own bunny, come back to look at the child who had first helped to make him real.